Following the news that I found coolant in the oil, I'm going to pull off this oil cooler and see if I can pressure test it. I tested it on the engine and it didn't seem to want to go into the oil passages, but maybe it'd be easier if I should remove it. We could detect the leak a little easier. To get to the oil cooler, you have to remove the right bank SAI tube, the tensioner, and alternator bracket. You can do this in a car. It's not easy, but it can be done. 2 triple squares. Coolant hoses for the alternator. Now we have the oil cooler exposed. So there's only a couple here. I'm gonna take this hose off. Look at these guys, hard and brittle. So I made a little rig here to try to test the oil cooler. Plug this end, plug this end. Everything's plugged up. Don't hear any leaks. Alright, pressure tested the oil cooler. It came out completely fine. Held 25 PSI, no problem. It's going right back on. Now I'm going to put all the hydraulic lash adjusters and rocker arms back in place. I'm going to put the cams back on, cam carrier, seal it all up with some Honda Bonda, and put a new pip seal in here as well. You feel it if it's on or not. It has a very distinct feeling. Right. Lubricate your cam bearings well. Alright, we're going to be using some Honda Bonda, the best Bonda for your Honda and Audi vehicle. And basically you spread it just along these outer surfaces and also right here. And that's about it. Everything else just this all feeds out to the back, so I'm not worrying about that. There's also these alignment dowel pins. You can make your own. Use like a turn down bolt or something, but it's definitely nice to have this so everything sits on perfectly and you're not shifting the carrier around. Alright, time to lay it on. Frig off! The house is falling apart. Well, I'm gonna have to pull it off a bit. Right, once you get your cams locked in, now you can start bringing everything down. Everything is lined up here, intake, exhaust. Those are all parallel. Once everything is touching and is just a little tight, you tighten all of them to 8 Newton meters, which is about 70 inch-pounds. Again, starting inwards and working outwards. Check it one more time. Once you've done that, do your final torque to yield 90 degrees. 1, 2, 3.
taking all this off.
Both facers are lined up in the same position which they were originally. So now I'm going to remove the tensioner clip. Keep some pre-tension on it. These are adjusted. Now you use a special tool to counter hold one while you torque the other. Now put some weight on this. Like push down on my hand. Okay. That's about as much as I want you to push down on it. Ready?
Oh, I don't know what.
Just push it. Not all the way, but keep holding it. Like a good amount.
Okay.
Got the right bank pre-tensioned. So these guys are set to 60 Newton meters. And once I pre-tension the left bank as well, then we'll do a final to 80 Newton meters and then a final 90 degrees on all four cams, and that'll lock everything in. So to recap, we got everything tightened up here. You have to pull out those little tensioner hold down tools, and then you pre-tension these guys, pre-torque them to 40 Newton meters. Now we take off the cam locks, we tighten these down to 80 Newton meters, and then a final 90 degrees. Jesus. We want to make sure everything is lined up. We're not going to have any piston to valve clearance issues. So I'm going to pull out the crank lock, spin the crank over at least 2 revolutions. Cylinder head covers on. These guys get tightened down to 9 Newton meters in an outward spiral pattern again. Big mistake a lot of people make, probably I did earlier as well, is over tightening them. And when you over tighten them, you end up compressing here and here, and then having a bow over in between the 2 fasteners. It's just a little plastic cover, so it doesn't take a lot to deform it. And you could get potentially leaks in between there. So you can see a difference between a compressed gasket and uncompressed. So it's got some, even if it is bowed a little bit, it looks like it's still a good seal there. Time to put the rear covers on. So I drove these coolant tubes out. Now we're going to replace the O-rings in here. That just presses in there. I do suspect maybe these guys were leaking a little bit. A lot of pitting. It's not a good looking O-ring. Very dry and brittle as well. Got the intake manifold back on, put the bolts in, clean this up a little after, it looks really disgusting. Got the engine all finished up, oil pan sealed. A lot of oil in this plug here still. Gonna rotate the engine after, try to blow it out. It's all back together. Now we're gonna load it up. All right, here it is. Here's my little rig setup. Got the engine torqued back down to the engine mounts here. Oil pan is supported. Now I just gotta lift it up, line it up, which is always easier said than done, and put it together. Beautiful leveling system.